Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of Adventures TV. I'm super excited because we have a very first guest. So, my name is Nanada Akonse Chiema. I'm the co founder of Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women, and I co host Adventures TV with my very good friend,
Famia in Cancer, long time friend of the family, contributor, reader, paddy of adventures.
And today we have our very first guest, the fabulous Ngoza Whoopi Chungu, a filmmaker, storyteller, all-around fabulous woman from Zambia. Ngoza, welcome. How are you feeling about being our very first guest?
I am so honored. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed the first two episodes, and I hope that I won't take the level from here to here.
Well, we want you to take the level from here to here. This is why we've brought to you. And I mean, for me, I'm really happy to have you here because I want people to know that this is a show for African women, wherever we are on the continent, wherever we are in the diaspora. That's something that's really important to Fami and I. So thank you for agreeing to come on. And today,
thank you so
much. And today we're discussing a topic that I suspect will resonate with a lot of our viewers. And the topic is to children or not to children, right? Should every African woman have a child? I feel like on the continent, we almost have this concept of compulsory motherhood, right? Where it's expected that, in the same way in which you breathe, you must have children. You must want children. And if you don't want children, there's something really wrong with you. And actually, you need to have children by a certain age. And even when you have one child, everybody's like, when's the next child coming along? So really, this is what I want us to get into for today. And I know we all have like slightly different perspectives, but Ngoza, since you are our guest, we want to start with you. Do you want children? Yeah, share your thoughts on this whole topic with us.
No, I don't. I don't want children, and it took a long time to be honest with myself. When I was younger, I already knew I was in the galaxy of weirdo, and I'd created my own little solar system of, just not following the norm. And so I thought that, the one thing that I'm going to do right is I'm going to marry a good African boy. I'm going to make babies. That's what I'm going to do. And, in my 20s, I was in love with this boy, but I was very, very vigilant about contraception, like crazy, like the pill, condom, whatever, I was like everything to stop things happening. And I had forgotten my pill prescription in the US, and we were only using condoms. And that anxiety actually caused my period to be late. And so then I thought I was pregnant. And the reaction that I had wasn't one of glee saying, oh, we can work this out, because I knew that my family would, and they'd ensure that I finished, college because, got to do that. But the reaction that I had wasn't the one that I expected. I went through the whole motions. I was like, I don't think I can have an abortion. But I was like, if I don't have an abortion, I really do think I'm the kind of woman who'd throw herself down the stairs or something to like force a miscarriage. And that's not the right reaction. And I was like, maybe it's because like I'm still in school or whatever. And I was like, no, I don't want this man's child. I don't want anybody's child. I don't want a child. I don't want a child growing inside me. No. And then my period came. And so I had that internal conversation with myself. And then I started to realize that, let's just commit to the weirdoness. Okay, and by the time I was 30, I had a little chat with myself again, and I realized I really don't want children. It's not that I don't like children. I just don't want any children of my own. And by that time, my older sister had a child when I was 28. And the reaction I had then was a peacefulness came over me, because I was like, my genes have passed on, and I come from a matrilineal tribe here in Zambia. And so technically in my culture. And I felt that, and I didn't feel that I needed to go through the process too. And I love my niece, I love my nephew, I see them almost every day. And that is good enough for me. Yeah, no children.
And I'm curious, like, how have your family reacted? Have you actually said to your family you don't want any children?
Yes. From the time that I was 30, I made it perfectly clear that you need to stop asking me about when I'm going to get married. And, said that I'm not going to have children. And at first people were, how Ngosa is, she's not going to think this forever. And, I think, and I was like, you do realize that the reason that like marriage is of no interest for me is because I don't want children. So it's not a priority. If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not in a rush to find someone. And I was like, also understand that, like, trust me, if I wanted to be a mother, I'm the kind of person who I don't need to be married to have a kid, right? I even actually have sperm donors who have said, if I decide to change my mind, I can have, if I really wanted to have a child, I could have a child right now if I felt like it. But I don't want to, marriage in the African context is also not such a priority for me either, because that's usually why people get married. It's like you get married, you have your kids, you become a respectable member, and yeah, that's just that's not part of my story really.
And Famia, what's your story when it comes to children?
See, it's interesting because what Whoopi talks about is very fascinating to me. When women choose not to have kids, people sort of always react with this sort of, are you sure? Either they infantilize you like you don't know what you're talking about, or they try to guilt trip you. Oh, you're such a good person. You have to pass your genes on. There are so many dumb people in the world. We need to balance it out. Or they do the, oh, you're selfish. You don't want to ruin your figure. You don't want to share your life with anyone, blah, 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 blah. So I've always been aware that if I said I didn't want children, that I would get that reaction. And there was a period where I didn't. And I was very, very okay with getting that reaction. I just sort of felt like I'd stand my ground. When I was younger, from the time I was about 10, I always thought I'd have 4 kids. And I always said, I'm going to have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. This is the order, blah, 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 blah. And then when I was in my 20s, I didn't want any kids. And then when I turned 31, I'm 35 now. When I turned 31, one day I just had this thing where I saw my kid. And it was one kid and it was a girl, and it just felt right. It just sort of was like this projection of my life and my future, and there was a kid in it. And since then, I know that I want one kid, I want one girl. I always say the joke that if I get a boy, I'm taking him back. I'm like, oh, this is not good yet. Let's push him back. Let's bake this baby some more. It's not what we ordered. Waiter, come and collect it. It's not what we ordered. But of course, that's a joke. If I end up with a boy, I end up with a boy. But again, I saw a girl. I saw a little girl when I saw that thing. And so that's what I want. And I don't feel that sort of same sense of marriage. I believe that who you have a kid with is the most important decision you'll ever make in your life, even more so than who you marry. And the circumstances under which you have the kid need to be fairly well thought out. But I don't need to be married to have a kid, Just like Whoopi, I have a sperm donation on layaway, from a friend, from a gay friend, if I decide I want kids. And there are people in my life that I could see myself dating and having a kid with, even if I couldn't see myself marrying, So I definitely know between now and 40, I want a kid, and I plan to have that kid. But even that, there's still that pressure. Have the kid now. Have the kid now. You're getting old. You can't have one kid. What will the kid do in the world when you and your husband die? The kid will be alone. So it kind of feels like regardless of what choice you make as an African woman, there is going to be a peanuts gallery discussing your uterus and what you should do with it. Somebody's going to have an opinion. Either you're having too many kids, you're not having them enough of kids, you're having them too late, you're having them too early. Somebody will not be satisfied. And there will always be some kind of pressure to conform to somebody's idea of what a mother should be or what a woman should be. And womanhood is linked to motherhood so tightly in our culture, that people kill themselves trying to have kids. People steal kids. People go to juju men looking for kids. People drink all kinds of devastating and unhealthy concoctions. I mean, it's a society that is very, very focused on linking womanhood to motherhood. And if you don't have a kid, it's like you're not a woman. So I think resisting that pressure is absolutely important. And for me, I resisted it for a while and then I decided I wanted one kid.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that's the thing that's rather hard, right? That the way in which we're socialized to think of having children as natural, as something that every woman must do. For me, that's made it really hard for me to figure out if I want a child or if actually, I feel like I ought to have a child. And I know for me, one thing that really stuck with me was back in, I think it was 2008. I attended this feminist workshop in Cape Town, and we were doing a digital storytelling workshop, which was taught by feminists. And there was this older feminist woman, so would create these digital stories and we'll share the stories with the rest of the group and we'll tell them about what inspired the story. So this older feminist woman shared her story, and then she said something that has stayed with me until today. She said that every time she did a digital story, she realized that her one regret was not having children. And that really stayed with me because I thought, oh shit, like that must be the worst thing, to know that this was something that you were capable of doing, like biologically in terms of your body. But then you were not ready, or by the time you realized you wanted to do it, it was too late. And for me, that's a fear I've always had. So I think I am 40 years old, but I've never felt that strong biological clock ticking. Some people, because I've spoken to lots of people about this, they say like they really feel they want a child, they feel their life is not complete. I've never felt that, but what I've felt and what I've recognized, and I've had so many deadlines I've given myself that I've always missed. So in my late 20s, I thought, okay, because of everything they say around, if you're going to have a child, you should have it, by the time you're 30. If I'm going to have a child, I'll have a child by the time I'm 30. And then I turned 30. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself to 35. And then I turned 35, right? And then I think around the time that I was 37, I felt pregnant. It wasn't planned. My boyfriend and I at the time, I wouldn't even, okay, let's say boyfriend, but literally we had only just started seeing each other. That was like too new a relationship. We had just been careless and, frankly, fucking raw. I'm whispering that because it's the internet. And so we were like, oh, okay, what shall we do? And we both kind of felt like, yeah, let's do this. Let's have a child. And then we got super excited, and then about almost 3 months into the pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. So that was like, oh. And of course, that was really upsetting. And I've written about that and some adventures for those who want to go and read it. And so I also kind of felt conflicted afterwards. Lots of people were saying to me, you should straight away fall pregnant again. All the hormones are still in your body. This is a good time to get pregnant. Don't allow yourself to be depressed, But then I didn't feel like I wanted to try again. I didn't feel ready. And then about a year ago, my partner at the time, we've broken up now, we decided that actually we wanted to try again. But because we both are sickle cell carriers, and there's that 1 in 3 chance of having a child with a sickle cell. And because I did not want to go through another miscarriage, right? And I kind of felt like, okay, could I have had a miscarriage because maybe the fetus could have had sickle cell or whatever. We decided we'd do IVF. We did 1 round of IVF, which wasn't successful, and then it so happened that the relationship came to an end, so we didn't pursue the IVF further. And so for me, that's kind of, for a couple of months, it left me wondering, okay, what do I want, right? Did I feel I wanted a child because I was in a relationship with somebody who really wanted a child? What do I really want? And I've actually gone back to something that I've always wanted for a long time and I've always felt certain about. I've always felt certain that I wanted to adopt. I haven't ever felt certain that I want to have a biological child. That's always been a iffy maybe for me, but I've always felt like I wanted to adopt. So that's kind of where I am in this whole to children or not to children conversation.
It's interesting. It makes me think of something for Whoopi. Whoopi, are you ever scared about regret? I mean, I know that you're certain now, and I think that when people ask that question, it's kind of infantilizing because it's like you don't know your own mind, or you're not sure, or oh, you're just young and dumb, you'll grow out of it or whatever. So that's not the angle at all. But I was wondering, at least for me, part of the reason why I think like egg freezing and stuff like that is something I would pursue is that I want the option. I worry about regret, that if I don't do it and I totally shut the door, that one day I'll look back on it like that woman Nana was talking about and regret it. Do you feel like you have a worry about someday looking back and thinking you should have made a different choice?
No, because I think what has happened is that I'm 36 now, and you know I try to be as healthy as I can possibly be, not just in general or whatever it is. And I think that the older I get, actually the more comfortable I am with it, right? And the way that my lifestyle is, that keeps being this reinforcement that I have made the right choice. From my friends who are mothers and who have had children, right? And particularly because most of my friends are highly educated and are working, right? Motherhood for them, because the thing that's sold is that when you become a mother, finally you feel like a woman, finally you're fulfilled. This is your purpose in life. And for all of them, yeah, they've been like, no, right? And then what happens is the guilt of not feeling like becoming a mother is the everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't feel that I'm going to be any more of a woman, right? Becoming a mother. And I don't of a woman not becoming a mother with like I said, they're around all the time, right? And the way that my job is, it's not a 9 to 5, it's very erratic hours. I mean, today they ran in and I was like, dude, not today, because I have to be like on camera at like 10 p.m. like, and bright and cheery eyed, like, no, I'm taking a nap, right? But I can do that without guilt because I'm not mother.
But they have a mother.
I can send them back home. You know, because they have a mother. And when it was just my niece, I had started a TV show and I would disappear in the night. You know, I would leave for the next location around Zambia at like, you know, 2, 3 a.m. or whatever it is. And she'd wake up and she would kind of be here and would be so traumatized because she was so used to having me around during the day, you know, and I would get these calls and she'd be like, wait, like, but your car is here, you know, but your water bottle is here, because I wouldn't take my favorite water bottle. But she really couldn't process it, right? And when I would come back, she would literally jump out the window to try and catch the. And then when I was home, she would follow me to like the toilet, to the bath, like literally she was just like joined to me like the whole time. I left again. And I was like, I can't put a child through that, because when I'm on location, like I'm focused, right? And if I was to become a mother, I would want to be the best mother I could possibly be. And I don't think I could do that doing what I do. And I really love what I do. And I have, you were talking about the biological clock. I have never felt broody. I have just felt the opposite. Like I've just been learning more about it, your abs splitting, like all these things that like happen to you when you're pregnant. I'm just like, no, it's not beautiful. Like I don't want to go through the process. I don't want to be confused. No, I could have postpartum depression. No.
It's like the breaking of the body snatcher. It's like, whoa.
I think aliens, you know, when the thing just comes out like that too. No.
But I have to say, I can so relate to that, right? Because, I mean, when I was consciously trying to get pregnant and exploring IVF, one of the things I did, and I still kind of have, I haven't deactivated that, is I subscribed to all of these birth and Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
And especially like the Earth Goddess, Mother Goddess type, where people like sit in home baths with their partners behind them and then, you know, and I'm just like, oh my God, this child is going to split your body. You might never heal. And I think we never hear people talk about these things, right? How dangerous childbirth is, especially in our parts of the world. You know, how ridiculously high the maternal mortality rates are.
The reason why when you give birth in Africa, at least in Ghana, you wear white for like a month because it's like you've survived the war. It's a triumph. It's a victory that you came out of that childbirth alive. Anyway, that's just
no, seriously. I mean, it's like this is not something to be treated lightly, and I really
it's listed as trauma medically. It's listed as trauma medically. Please, can we take this seriously? Like honestly, like I have great respect for all the women that I know, that I don't know, who have ever lived, who are yet to live, who have babies, because it is quite something. It's natural and it's beautiful, but it's also it's destructive
for your body. Yeah. I wish people would be honest.
And not just your body, like it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I was just talking to someone yesterday about saying about coming on the show today, and she was like, a lot of the time people talk about like being financially ready, but she was not mentally prepared for the trip that pregnancy takes, aftermath, and how much your life changes, how much your body changes, the roller coaster with the hormones and everything. And you know, because people joke about being crazy, just like they say with another level and all that sort of stuff, right? Yeah, but it's a lot. Why don't we take it so seriously?
I mean, one of the things I'd love for us Femia to talk about in the future show is to invite some young feminist mothers to the show to share with us the experiences of both childbirth and just being a mother, and you know, balancing motherhood and you know your life as a person and sex and you know all of those good things we talk about at adventures. I mean, because I happen to have quite a few close friends who have happened to have children like within the past like year and a bit. So I feel like that would be a really interesting conversation to have as well.
I agree. I am in the same boat. I have maybe 5 friends who've recently had kids, and I'm a big believer in sort of really sort of going into that myth of motherhood, because I think that people airbrush it and they paint this rosy picture, and what that rosy picture does is that it becomes a cage for women who have other or not the same experience, right? And then they feel like to speak about the fact that their pregnancy and the birth of their child was trauma or did stuff to their body or whatever means that they don't love their child, that they'll be judged for being a bad mother. So it's like a self-perpetuating thing where everybody pretends having a kid and being a mother is the best thing in the world. And then the people who don't fall into that category are too intimidated to say otherwise. So then it just keeps going because like you conform to the standard that is not really a standard, but nobody can point it out. And it's crazy to me. So yeah, I think we should definitely have a couple of young mothers on to talk about their honest experiences.
So if you're a young mother listening to this show and want to come online, you know, holla at Fami and I. You can email us adventuresfrom@gmail.com. But Fami, one of the things you were saying earlier really resonated with me, right? You said like, you know, you want one girl. That's what I felt I always wanted. One child, and that one child has got to be a girl. And for me, I don't know like how you decided that, but for me, I was really influenced by Alice Walker. And I remember ages ago reading something she'd written where she said, if you're going to have a child, just have one child, because you can always pick up that one child and go, and it doesn't affect your life. So, and goes that, like, you know how you said that part of the reason why you don't want children is because, you know, there are all of these things that you're doing in your life and you want to be able to continue to do, and you can't really be, you felt you can't really be a good mother and do all of those things. I've always felt that if I had one child, I could still do everything I wanted to do and almost practice like attachment parenting, where my child was everywhere. If I was an MP, I'll be that mother who's sitting in the House of Parliament with my child on my boob, you know? So I was wondering, like, Famia, where you're, like, for you, why one child?
For me, I feel like I've gotten to a point in my life, I've had a very interesting last, 10, 12 years where I've just had a lot of different things to juggle in my personal life. And I feel like I'm very honest with myself about what I can handle. I can handle one kid. I don't think I can handle two. Because there's this thing people say where one kid is like one kid, but two kids is like 100 kids. it just sort of exponentially multiplies when you add numbers. And for me, I want one because I can see myself with one. Like when I had the thing in my head where I saw the kid, it was one kid. And also, I want to raise a young feminist woman. I feel as if my parents were good and they taught me stuff that I want to pass on, you know, and I want to be part of raising a young woman that's an asset to the world, that balances out the Trumps and the nonsense, you know. That's kind of a plus to cancel out all the people who are minuses. And so that's what it is. It's just really about being honest. But I think even one child, sometimes it's idealized as this is something that is manageable. A kid is a kid, and a kid is hard. I mean, a kid is a whole new responsibility, you know. And of course, it gets harder the more kids there are, but even one kid is no joke. You know, attachment parenting or not, you'll have struggles with childcare, you'll have issues with dividing your attention, you'll have, you know, all kinds of things will crop up. So I have a lot of respect for mothers because it's not easy, Charlie. It's not, even with one, it's not easy.
And you know what?
So I have a question
Yeah,
to bounce off of what Fabio just said. So I'd like to ask Nana, because Famia wants to have a child naturally, right? And just thinking about adoption, which means one, you can choose the sex of your child pretty easily. So this is sort of a two-part question. Like, the reason I would do you choose, like, I mean, thought of like choosing, like, and then leaving the other ones, like, I don't know how I don't know how I could reconcile that. So firstly, how do you pick the girl, right? And then secondly, are you worried about there being a stigma? Because a lot of the times in Africa, it's all about like having the natural birth, right? And then if you've adopted, you know, it's because either, you know, you've had people don't understand adopting. There's there's the family member who comes and stays in your house, or whatever. But like adopting is not something that we really do. So, you know, how do you pick the child, and are you worried about any stigma?
No, it's a great question, because this is actually something I've been discussing with my parents for a while, because I knew I wanted it and I wanted them to be on my side. And it's taken a while, but my mom has come around to the extent where she's pressurizing me and saying, so when are you going to start the adoption? From have your own child, when are you going to adopt? You know, as for my dad, I've decided not to say anything to him, because he believes that, you know, what you should do is rather foster a child. If you see a child that's in need, you should support that child, maybe provide money to the child's own parents to take care of the child. He doesn't think, in a sense, you should take somebody else's child and raise the child as your own, you know. But he's a man who's 80 years old, right? I think he comes from a different generation. My own thinking is that, you raise a child just like you would raise your own child. You don't treat the child any differently to how you treat your own biological child, you know. In terms of how I'll choose, I just plan to go through like the legal system, you know, through social services, the organizations in Ghana. I know there's a queue. And I will just let my child know naturally that they were very much wanted by me. They were wanted by me so much that I chose them. This is how much they were wanted. They didn't just happen. You know, I had to like plan and work to make them come into my life, and I'm their mom, you know. Because I think like you have to just speak to children from a very early age, so it's a matter of fact then to them. So hopefully they don't grow up having any issues. So I just plan to do like sort of lots of reading around this, so I can be in the best position to sort of have my child understand that even though you're adopted, you know, this is completely normal, and there are different types of families, and all types of families are valid. So yeah, that's kind of how I plan to deal with it. And if people have issues, that's their own stuff, right? Like, fortunately, I've just always been one of those people who doesn't give much of a toss what other people think about me. I care about the people who are close to me, my friends, my family, and I think they will be supportive, and that's all that I need. Yeah. But I feel like this has been a super interesting conversation that we could go on and on, but obviously we have a limited amount of time. So I want to come and ask both Famia and Ngoza for any final thoughts. But before I do, I also want to pose some questions to people who might be watching, whether you're watching live or whether you watch this video later on. We want to know your experiences around children. We want to know, have you had children? And if you were to go back, would you want to do it differently? Would you have wanted to have your children at a later stage? Do you dare say even regret having a child? Yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Have you been experiencing pressure to have children? Have you resisted the urge to have children? Do you feel you don't want children and other people don't understand? Would love to hear your thoughts. Please comment on the Facebook video. We will respond to your comments. So final thoughts on this topic from you, Famia, and then Ngoza.
So, okay, tons to talk about, but the first, just summarize, for me, the fact that we center men so much in childbearing irritates me. I mean, love is great, men are great, a relationship is great, but the thought that you can't have a child without a man then makes options like adoption or sperm banks or, having a donor. It makes all those things seem like they're not viable options, right? So there are lots of women who are dying and desperate to get married, not so much because they need a man, but because they want a kid. And they've been socialized to think a man is the only way that you can get a kid. And for me, that's a really problematic line of thinking that as a society, we need to unpack it. We actively need to unpack it and come to the decision that, like you said, there are different kinds of families. If you want a child as a woman, it's your body, it's your autonomy. You should be able to. And a village raises a child. A child doesn't necessarily need a father to be whole. And again, like I said, who you make a kid with is the most important decision you'll ever make in your life, in my opinion. So for me, I think we need to stop centering men so much in the conversation about kids and allow women to explore the range of options. So.
Love it. How about you, Ngoza?
All right, so I'm going to say two things. The first thing is I'd like to thank all the people in my life who are mothers and who have children, because I'm really blessed to have like a global village, a rainbow nation of nieces and nephews, right? And my life is full with all of those young kids. They're all under 10, and just had like a huge batch of ones who are like under 3. So my life is enriched, and when I see those children and the way that I'm able to be a part of their lives, it's a real honor, right? So I'd like to say thank you. And also I'd like to say, there's a whole lot of women out there who have kids and are being pressured to have more kids. Like, if you don't want any more kids, don't fight to not have any more kids. Because I keep hearing this thing over and over and over where, women are like, I'm done with the 1, or I'm done with the 2, or, I'm done with the 3 or whatever it is. And they're getting this pressure to have more and more children. And stop pressuring women to have more children than they want to have. And then I'd also like to say, as a childless person, right? And the older I get, I've basically been the same size since I was 16. So that's the last 20 years, right? Apart from like a couple of blips. And what happens now is I get a lot of women upset with me and saying quite horrible things to me because, right, their bodies may not be quite what they were before their kids or whatever. I'm all about, like, if you make a choice, stand by your choice. So me being a childless person, I don't go around saying, hey, look at my body because I don't have kids. I don't do that, right? Because it's not nice. In the same way, please do not shame me, right? For having the body that they have, yeah, because they don't have kids. Like, can we be nice to each other, women? Support each other in our choices and accept ourselves as we are. That is it.
True. And some of us even have the bodies of women who have had kids, even though we haven't had kids.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? All our bodies are beautiful. That is the point.
I agree. All bodies are beautiful and we should F beauty standards. I totally agree. Well, this has been so much fun.
Right.
So much fun. Thank you so much, Ngoza, for joining Family and I. We're so happy. And just to let everybody know, we also have a new look on adventures. We have a brand new website. You should check it out. It's adventuresfrom.com. And yeah, let us know any other topics you'd want us to discuss in future. You may have also noticed that we switched the time for recording today's session. We decided to try Wednesdays at 8 p.m. GMT. So let us know whether this works for you or whether you prefer that we go back to our original time, which was Saturdays at 4 p.m. GMT. So thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
We loved having you. Come back again.
Yes, come back anytime.
Oh, I'm ready.